Be careful how you treat the strange one in the room. They might be the blueprint for your next breakthrough. Funny how the tables turn, isn't it? One minute you're the weird one people whisper about at brunch, and the next, you're the one whose energy they're secretly obsessed with. They're quoting your words like scripture, stealing your mannerisms like fashion trends, and suddenly, the one they overlooked is the one they're watching in HD silence. Here's the twist. Psychological studies show that admiration and envy activate almost identical parts of the brain. That means some of your so-called haters might just be confused fans in disguise. Yep, the one who rolled their eyes last year is now binge-watching your evolution like it's their favorite Netflix drama. And guess what? You didn't even change much. You just stopped shrinking. But here's what they didn't expect. You weren't looking for fans. You were busy healing, evolving, and being real in a world built on performance. That's what made you magnetic. That's why they can't stop watching. And the craziest part? The person who's secretly admiring you now might just be the last soul you'd ever expect. The old boss who underestimated you, the ex who swore they'd moved on, the friend who ghosted, or maybe even that one person who once called you too intense, now meditating to your old IG captions like they're divine downloads. So buckle up, because today we're diving deep into why you've become a magnet for admiration, who's secretly a fan, and why the applause feels louder when it comes from unexpected lips. Let's break it wide open. Number 1, your radiance came from ruin, and that's what's pulling them in. They're drawn to your light now, but they have no idea what it cost you to shine. What people admire most about you today, your strength, your calm, your glow, isn't something you were born with. It's what you built from the rubble. You didn't wake up like this. You were forced to rise like this. The version of you they see and respect now is the result of spiritual surgery. Years of breaking down, rebuilding, bleeding in silence, and showing up anyway. They're admiring your radiance, but that radiance came from ruin. Most people think glow-ups are physical, but yours was spiritual. You glowed differently because you healed deeply. You survived things you never even had the words to explain, and instead of turning bitter, you turned inward. You grew, and that's what they're seeing now. It's not just that you look better. It's not just that your energy feels magnetic. It's that something about you carries the weight of someone who's died and resurrected, emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. That kind of transformation can't be faked, bought, or taught. It's earned, and it's felt. That's why they can't stop watching. Even if they don't say it out loud, they feel something different around you. It's respect and a little confusion. Because how is it that someone who went through so much still walks with so much peace? How can you be soft but unshakable? Warm but wise enough to cut through lies? You don't carry victim energy. You carry victory, but a quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself. The kind that speaks through your posture, your boundaries, your silence, and your presence. And now they're drawn to you. Not just for what you've become, but for how you became it. You didn't get loud, flashy, or performative. You became authentic. And in a world where everyone's faking confidence and calling it healing, you became the real thing. That's why admiration is rising. That's why people who never clapped before are watching now with wide eyes and closed mouths. You turned your pain into presence. You made your ashes glow. And now the ones who once overlooked you can't look away. Number 2, their curiosity isn't casual. It's spiritual hunger. They're not just admiring you, they're craving something they can't name. Their attention isn't random, it's not some casual interest or light curiosity, it's spiritual hunger. There's something in you that awakens something in them, something they've been searching for without even realizing it. You don't speak like everyone else. You don't carry yourself like everyone else. You move with purpose, with calm, with an inner knowing, and that's what's got them hooked. People are starving for realness. They've been fed fake connections, fake influencers, fake strength, and empty motivation. But when they come across you, there's a shift. Your presence feels different. You're not just another voice online or another person in the room. You carry weight. There's truth in your energy. You don't try to impress, and that's exactly what impresses them. You don't need to prove anything because you already know who you are. And that knowing, That's the part that speaks to the part of them that feels lost, unsure, or unanchored. They don't just admire your strength, they crave your clarity. They want to know what you know. They want to feel what you feel. It's like you've unlocked a door they've been pounding on their whole life, and now they're quietly hoping you'll show them the way in. That's why someone you'd never expect is watching so closely. They may not even understand it themselves, but their soul does. Their soul recognizes the frequency you're vibrating on, even if their mind still hasn't caught up. That's the thing about chosen ones. Your existence alone challenges people. Not because you try to, but because you remind them of what they buried inside themselves. When they see you, they see who they could be if they stopped pretending, if they stopped performing, if they started healing. You're not famous, you're not loud, you're not polished in the way the world expects, but you're real. And real is rare. That rarity is what they're drawn to. They're not just admiring a person, they're responding to a frequency. And that frequency, that's truth. That's purpose. That's God in motion through you. They don't fully understand what they're feeling, but they know they don't want to stop feeling it. Number 3, the one watching you secretly is the one who publicly mocked you. The one admiring you now is probably the same one who used to laugh at you behind closed doors. And that's what makes it so wild. They once rolled their eyes at your dreams, made jokes about how different you were, and secretly hoped you'd fall on your face. But now they're watching you in silence, wide-eyed, because the same person they underestimated is outgrowing every limitation they tried to box you into. Their admiration is real, but they'll never say it out loud, because admitting it would mean admitting they were wrong about you, and their ego can't handle that. What they didn't expect was growth, not just any growth, but the kind that can't be explained. You didn't follow their script. You didn't become bitter. You didn't stay stuck in the role they assigned you. You transformed. You evolved in ways that make them uncomfortable because it forces them to face the truth. They were operating out of pride, fear, and ignorance while you were minding your business and leveling up in silence. They're still processing how the one they used to mock is now someone they secretly admire. You became everything they claimed you'd never be. And now, they're the ones with silent notifications on your updates. They're the ones listening to your words, trying to copy your delivery, trying to make sense of how you did it without begging for validation or fitting in. They never expected you to become an influence, and now they can't stop being influenced. The twist is, they're not bad people. They were just too small-minded to see your greatness at the time. You intimidated them because you carried something they couldn't define. You made them feel exposed, not because you tried to, but because your authenticity made their masks uncomfortable. So they reacted with sarcasm and shade. That was their defense mechanism. But now that you've risen above it all, they can't deny what they see. Someone rare, someone refined by the fire, someone chosen. Their silence is not ignorance, it's reflection. They know what they did, and now they know what you are. So yes, someone you never expected is now a fan. They used to laugh at your journey, but now they're studying your every move like it's a map to their own breakthrough. Number 4, you activated something in them that they didn't know existed. You did not just impress them, you disrupted them. You did not show up to entertain or be liked, but your presence did something deeper. It pulled on a part of them they had buried under years of performance, fear, and false identity. You were not loud about it. You did not force anything. But just by being fully yourself, something inside them got activated. A light came on that they did not even know existed. You did not inspire admiration. You triggered an awakening. They looked at you and suddenly started questioning things they were taught to accept. They began to wonder why they are living a life that feels fake, heavy, or disconnected. Why their confidence feels forced. Why their peace is always temporary. You walked into the room and unknowingly confronted everything they believed about strength, value, and identity, and it shook them. You carry something rare, not in your appearance but in your soul. There is a deep sense of alignment in you. You know who you are. You have been through the storm, and it shows, not in scars but in your stillness. That energy does not just draw people in, it changes them. It challenges them without you saying a word. They start rethinking everything, how they talk, how they present themselves, who they are when no one is watching, all because they encountered you. This is not about ego. It is not about praise. It is about purpose. Your energy carries truth, and truth always disrupts illusions. You woke something up in them that had been asleep for years. You reminded them of a version of themselves that they lost, a version that was honest, bold, pure, the one that existed before life hardened them, before fear made them shrink, before shame made them pretend. And now they are unsettled in the best way. They are quiet around you because they are thinking. They are watching you not because you are flashy, but because you make something in them come alive. You are not their role model, you are their mirror. And when they saw you, they saw who they were created to be before the world told them otherwise. Number 5. You're proof that mystery still exists in a shallow world. You didn't play the game. You didn't chase attention or try to be seen. While everyone else was busy posting, proving, and performing, you stayed in your lane. You moved quietly, healed privately, and allowed your growth to happen off-camera. And because of that, you became something rare, mysterious. In a world where people overshare for validation and trade authenticity for applause, you became the one who didn't need to be loud to be noticed. That silence made you magnetic. People can't wrap their minds around you, and that's exactly why they're drawn to you. You don't give them easy answers. You don't fit into the box. They can't figure out if you're peaceful or dangerous, soft or powerful, quiet or calculating. And that tension keeps them coming back. You're the one they scroll past 10 times, then scroll back to. Because something about you doesn't settle. Something about you lingers. The truth is, your mystery isn't a strategy. It's a result of real healing. You didn't stop talking because you wanted to look deep. You stopped talking because you learned silence holds power. You let people assume, guess, project, and you kept building anyway. And now the very people who once ignored your presence are obsessed with the fact that they still don't know what to make of you. There's something sacred about not being fully understood, something powerful about being untouchable even when you're visible. You left breadcrumbs, not blueprints. You shared glimpses, not your soul. And that restraint, it commands more respect than shouting ever could. People are tired of filters, tired of noise, tired of trying to keep up with fake perfection. You remind them that it's okay to be private, to have layers, to not explain yourself. You prove that being unknown in detail doesn't mean being unseen in spirit. They don't know your full story, and that drives them wild. Because what you don't say says everything. In a world where everyone is addicted to exposure, you stayed hidden long enough to become rare, and now they can't look away. Number 6. They thought you'd be easy to dismiss. But you're unshakable. They thought you'd fold. They thought you'd crack under pressure or disappear after the rumors. Your silence made them believe you were weak. Your distance made them think you were done. But what they didn't realize is that your absence was strategy, not surrender. You weren't hiding. You were building, healing, listening, learning. And now they're realizing they misjudged you completely. Your name was dragged into conversations meant to destroy your image. People exaggerated stories, created narratives, and tried to make others see you through a dirty lens. Some laughed, some agreed, some just watched, but none of them expected you to still be standing, stronger, clearer, and more grounded than ever. You didn't respond with chaos. You didn't defend yourself at every turn. You let the lies run their course, and while they were busy trying to stain your name, you were elevating, quietly, consistently. And now the same mouths that once whispered against you are whispering again, but this time with respect. They're saying, they're not what we thought, because you weren't loud, but you were steady. You weren't aggressive, but you were firm. You didn't chase after clearing your name. You became the kind of person whose presence clears the air without saying a word. That unshakable energy you carry now didn't come from being praised. It came from surviving storms without applause. You were tested, attacked, misunderstood, and you didn't fall apart. You rose, piece by piece, silently, without needing to be seen. And now the ones who tried to dismiss you have no choice but to respect you, because you've proven that real strength doesn't perform, it endures. Your resilience confused them. Your peace offended them. Your refusal to fall into their traps exposed the limits of their own character, and now they're the ones looking confused, because the plan was to bury you, not to watch you bloom. The truth is, they never expected you to be this stable, this sharp, this intact. And now their admiration is mixed with regret because they could have stood beside you, but instead they tried to tear you down. And you just kept rising. Number 7, you were their mirror, and they couldn't handle the reflection. They didn't laugh at you because you were strange. They laughed because they were scared. You were a mirror they weren't ready to look into. Your honesty, your vulnerability, your way of showing up without a mask, it exposed everything they were trying to hide. They were performing, pretending, fitting in to survive, and here you were, raw, unfiltered, and unapologetically yourself. That scared them more than they'd ever admit. You didn't follow the script. You said what you meant. You walked away when it didn't feel right. You showed emotions they'd been taught to suppress, and because they couldn't do what you did, they mocked you for doing it. They labeled you too much, too deep, or too different, not because it was true, but because your freedom highlighted their bondage. They weren't judging you. They were reacting to what your presence made them feel, exposed. Your authenticity brought discomfort, not because you were wrong, but because you reminded them of a self they abandoned a long time ago. You made them feel things they'd buried, and instead of leaning in, they lashed out. Instead of asking questions, they made jokes, because mocking you was easier than confronting themselves. But now the script is flipped. Time has passed. Some of them have matured. Others have been broken by life in the same way they once laughed at you for. And suddenly you make sense. Suddenly, your depth doesn't seem dramatic. It seems wise. Your boundaries don't seem harsh. They seem necessary. Your silence, it's no longer weird. It's powerful. They see now that you weren't being extra. You were being real. And they couldn't handle it then because they didn't know how to be real themselves. But life has a way of humbling people. Now that their masks have cracked or their performances have exhausted them, they see you differently. They finally understand that what they thought made you odd actually made you whole. And the most powerful part? You never needed revenge. You didn't throw their words back at them. You let your life do the talking. You kept growing. You stayed true. And now, the same mirror they once ran from is the one they're quietly looking into, hoping to find the same kind of truth within themselves. Number 8. Your lifestyle has become their secret blueprint. They'll never say it out loud, but you've become the reference point, the silent standard, the hidden influence behind the way they're suddenly moving different, thinking deeper, and talking with more conviction. They don't repost your content, but they scroll through it often. They don't comment on your words, but they screenshot your quotes and tuck them away. They're following your path in the dark, hoping no one notices who lit the way. They used to dismiss the way you lived, your boundaries, your silence, your focus. They called it weird, too much, or unnecessary. But now, they're replicating it in private. The same ones who mocked your discipline are now trying to build routines. The ones who rolled their eyes at your spiritual talk are now quoting it as their own. They watched you be consistent when no one clapped for you. They saw you show up, evolve, and align, without begging for attention. And somewhere along the way, you became their silent teacher. They won't admit it, because to admit it would mean admitting they were wrong. It would mean acknowledging that truth was in front of them the entire time, and they rejected it. Pride won't let them give you your flowers. But imitation? That's the respect they're too prideful to speak. They mimic your tone because it carries weight. They change their vocabulary to match your energy. They realign their belief systems slowly, carefully, never naming you, but always tracing you. They're trying to find what you found, without admitting you found it first. You didn't just inspire them, you rewired them. You didn't preach to them, you showed them. You became the proof that there's another way to live, honestly, deeply, spiritually, and without apology. And that kind of influence sticks, even in silence. What they copy is more than your style, it's your substance, and that's why it lingers. You became the quiet blueprint they denied needing. And though they may never give you credit, your impact shows up in the way they move now. It's in the way they pause before reacting, the way they think before speaking, the way they're slowly becoming more of who they were meant to be because you showed them how without even trying. Number 9. What they admire now is what they once tried to destroy. It is almost ironic how the same things they used to criticize you for are now the things they admire in others. Your softness, which they once saw as weakness, is now praised as emotional intelligence. Your independence, which made them uncomfortable, is now being celebrated as strength. Your discipline, which they called controlling or rigid, is suddenly seen as inspiring. And your intuition, the very thing they mocked and dismissed, is now what they are trying to develop in themselves. They did not hate those qualities. They just hated seeing them in someone who reminded them they had work to do. The truth is, you were never the problem. You were just ahead of your time. Your clarity made them feel exposed. Your self-respect forced them to question their own lack of boundaries. And because they could not meet you where you were, they tried to tear you down. That is what people do when they feel threatened, but do not understand why. They attack what they do not yet have the courage to become. You were not too intense, too sensitive, or too different. You were simply operating from a place they had not reached yet. They labeled your light as too much, because it made the shadows in them uncomfortable. But now, after life has humbled them, after they have been broken or awakened in some way, they see those traits differently. Now they recognize your softness as power, your independence as wisdom, your discipline as self-mastery, and your intuition as divine. They talk now about the very things they tried to destroy in you. They repost content that sounds like things you said years ago. They are finally embracing the qualities you had all along, just not in you, because it is easier for them to celebrate those traits in someone else than to admit they crushed it in you out of fear, jealousy, or ignorance. And that is the painful truth. They tried to break the very thing they are now seeking. You were never too much. You were just too early. You were the example before they were ready to appreciate the lesson. And now, every time they praise those traits in someone else, it only proves that you were right all along. Number 10. They've been haunted by the way you handled disrespect. They did not expect you to stay calm. They expected a meltdown. They expected anger, chaos, maybe even revenge. But what they got instead was something they could not prepare for. Your silence, your maturity, your elevation. You didn't scream, you didn't expose, you didn't try to match their disrespect, you simply rose above it in a way that left them speechless. And now, that moment plays on repeat in their mind. You made them uncomfortable, not by what you said, but by what you didn't. Because they were counting on you to react. They wanted a scene they could use against you. They were ready for drama, for fire, for proof that you were unstable or bitter. But instead, you became the mirror they weren't ready for. Your refusal to engage didn't make you weak, it made you unforgettable. They know how they treated you. They know how they disrespected you. And they know you had every right to clap back, but you didn't. You chose dignity. You chose silence over pettiness, growth over gossip. You let them walk away thinking they won, and that's exactly why it haunts them. Because now they realize they lost something rare. And the loss feels heavier when it's met with grace instead of war. You did not have to get loud to prove your worth. You let your evolution speak. You let your peace say everything your mouth didn't. And that kind of restraint, that kind of self-control, it left a mark on them deeper than any insult ever could. You were the storm they never saw coming, not because you raged, but because you didn't. Now they sit with it. The way they crossed lines, the way they tried to provoke you, the way you responded like royalty, not because you were trying to look strong, but because you were strong. That moment changed something in them. It forced them to question their own behavior. It forced them to respect you, even if they never say it. They still think about how you handled it, and every time they remember it humbles them. Because when someone disrespects you, and you don't stoop to their level, you don't just protect your peace. You prove you were never on the same level to begin with. Number 11. Their admiration is a form of spiritual repentance. They may never apologize with words, but their actions are speaking volumes. You can feel the shift, the way they're suddenly supportive, the way they quietly show up where they once ignored you. They're trying to rewrite a history they can't undo. Not with apologies, but with attention, with subtle gestures, with silent loyalty. What you're witnessing isn't just admiration. It's spiritual repentance. They know they got it wrong with you. And now, they're trying to make it right the only way their pride will allow. They mishandled something sacred when they mishandled you. At the time, they didn't see it. You were too pure, too bold, too honest for the space they were in. They took your authenticity for arrogance. They mistook your calling for ego. They confused your light with threat, and so they tried to dim it, ignore it, or control it. But now something in them has awakened. They finally see that what you carried wasn't ordinary. It wasn't for show. It was divine. It was real. Now they're trying to align with what they once pushed away. You'll notice it in how they repost your quotes without tagging you, how they show up to your events but sit in the back, how they compliment your work in public but never mention the harm they caused in private. It's not because they're fake. It's because they're convicted. Their conscience is loud, but their mouth can't yet admit the truth. Their support now is not flattery. It's a quiet attempt at reconciliation, a way to say, I see you now, without having to admit, I failed you then. And as strange as it might feel, there's something deeply spiritual about that. Because real repentance often doesn't come dressed in perfect words. It shows up as changed behavior. It shows up in how someone treats what they used to mistreat. You are witnessing that now. They are imitating what they used to reject. They're elevating what they once ignored. And while it may never come with a proper apology, the energy tells the truth. You were the vessel they didn't know how to honor. Now that they've grown, or been broken, they finally see you for what you are. And their admiration, quiet as it may be, is their soul trying to make peace with the mistake. Number 12. The crown on you is invisible, but their soul recognized it. They cannot explain it, but they feel it. There is something about you that pulls people in, even if you do not speak much. It is not about how you look, how loud you are, or what you have achieved. You carry something deeper, something they cannot touch, but their soul responds to it. It is not charm, it is not talent, it is spiritual authority. There is a crown on you that eyes cannot see, but hearts cannot ignore. People feel different around you. They feel calm, they feel exposed, they feel like they can breathe. Some are drawn to you for no logical reason. They just know that when they are around you, they feel grounded, they feel safe, they feel seen, even if you say nothing at all. That is not personality. That is divine presence. Your crown is not gold and jewels. It is made of alignment, pain transformed into wisdom, and battles you survived in silence. It was placed on your head the moment you said yes to the path no one else would take. The moment you chose integrity when compromise was easier. The moment you decided to be real, even when it cost you everything. You earned that crown, not through status, but through surrender. That is what their soul sees. Even if their ego does not understand it, their spirit does. That is why some people are respectful around you, even if they do not know why. That is why others feel convicted or uncomfortable in your presence. You carry the weight of someone who has been refined by fire, and that kind of authority cannot be faked. You are not trying to impress anyone. You are just walking in your assignment. But that walk is powerful. It shifts atmospheres, it silences nonsense. It brings clarity into chaotic spaces. That is what they feel. That is what they respond to. You do not have to announce who you are. Your spirit already did. So when people lean in without knowing why, when they listen more closely to you than to others, when they treat you differently without even realizing it, that is the crown speaking. Invisible to the eyes, undeniable to the soul. Number 13. They realized you were the answer. But they laughed at the packaging. They were expecting something flashy, someone loud, polished, dramatic. That's what they were trained to recognize as powerful. That's what they were conditioned to trust. They wanted charisma. They wanted a spectacle. But then you showed up. Quiet, calm, grounded, no performance, no ego, just truth. And they laughed. Not because you lacked value, but because you didn't look like what they thought value should look like. They overlooked you because you didn't match the image they had in their mind. You weren't trying to prove anything. You weren't demanding attention. You didn't show up with followers or titles. You came with insight, depth, and spirit. And because it was too pure, too subtle, too real, they couldn't receive it at first. They needed noise to feel secure. And you were stillness in a world addicted to chaos. But here's the thing. Truth does not need volume to be powerful. It just needs presence. And your presence was the answer to questions they didn't even know they were asking. You held the clarity they were seeking, the wisdom they were craving, the shift they were praying for. But it came dressed in humility. And they weren't ready for that. So they dismissed you until life humbled them, until the noise failed them, until the ones they idolized turned out to be hollow. That's when they came back around, quietly, cautiously, because now they see it. They feel the weight of what you carry. They remember the things you said, the way you moved, how you made them feel without trying. And now they can't unsee it. The very person they laughed at is the one they are now trying to learn from. It is not easy to realize that you rejected the answer because it didn't come in the form you expected. But that's exactly what's happening. Your humility was not weakness. It was the filter. Only those with real spiritual hunger could recognize you. And now that their ego is quieter, their spirit can finally hear what you were saying all along. You were never the problem. You were the solution hidden in plain sight. And now, the packaging they once laughed at is the same packaging they are studying with reverence. Because the truth you carry, it outlasted their expectations, and now they know they were blind. Not because you were invisible, but because they were too distracted to see. Number 14. Their admiration hurts because it's laced with regret. They admire you now, but it does not come with joy. It comes with a sting. Because every time they watch you rise, they're reminded of who you were when they had access to you, and what they failed to see. Their admiration is not just about how far you have come. It's a quiet mourning for how blind they were when you were right in front of them. They are not just clapping for you now. They are grieving the version of themselves that was too distracted, too arrogant, or too insecure to appreciate you when it mattered. They replay conversations in their head, remembering the moments they brushed you off, laughed at your ideas, minimized your gifts. And now watching you thrive feels bittersweet. They are inspired, yes, but also haunted. Because while the world is just now discovering you, they had a front row seat and still missed it. That regret runs deep. It's not just, I should have supported them. It's, I could have grown beside them. I could have been part of this story. I could have been aligned instead of resistant. That is why their admiration stays quiet. That is why they watch from the sidelines instead of speaking up. It is hard to cheer loudly for someone you once ignored, especially when their rise exposes your own lack of vision. They did not just underestimate you. They underestimated what your presence in their life could have awakened in them. And now, that realization burns. It is a strange place to be in, to root for someone while also being crushed by your own role in their past. That is the tension they sit with. That is why they can't look away, but also can't come close. You represent a missed opportunity, a reminder of who they could have been if they had been more open, more aware, more humble. And so they remain fans in the shadows. They watch your evolution with pride, but also pain. They admire your light, but flinch when it reflects back their blind spots. You were never the villain. You were the chance they ignored. And now that chance has become greatness right before their eyes. The what-ifs are loud, the admiration is real, but so is the regret. Their admiration isn't clean. It's complicated. It's not just respect for who you've become. It's regret for who they failed to recognize. You didn't change overnight. You've always had that essence, that insight, that spark. But back then, they couldn't see it. Or maybe they refused to. Maybe they were too busy chasing noise to recognize substance. Maybe they were waiting for someone more polished, more popular, more in line with their shallow expectations. Whatever the reason, they missed it. And now that they see it, it stings. They look at you now with a kind of silent awe. But behind that admiration is a voice they can't shut off. One that says, you had a chance, you had access, and you blew it. They aren't just clapping for who you are today. They're mourning the version of themselves that was too blind, too prideful, too dismissive. They envy that past version of you, the one that was humble, honest, and open, the one they could have grown with, learned from, stood beside. Instead, they laughed, they doubted, they stayed silent, and now they watch from the sidelines with a knot in their chest. They screenshot your quotes, they forward your videos, they replay your words in their head and wonder how they missed it, how they missed you. The rise you're experiencing is beautiful, but for them it's a reminder that they underestimated greatness just because it wasn't wrapped in the packaging they preferred. They admire you, yes, but they do it from the shadows. Not because they don't believe in you now, but because believing in you now means facing the truth about who they were then. It means admitting they failed to see something divine when it was closest. It means sitting with the ache of knowing they misjudged what was real. Their praise is real, but it's heavy. Every compliment they think of carries the weight of what if. What if they had supported you sooner? What if they had trusted your vision? What if they had shown up differently when it counted? That's what haunts them. Because your glow now isn't just success, it's proof of everything they missed. In the end, this was never about applause. It was about alignment. You didn't evolve to prove them wrong. You evolved to stay true to who you've always been. The admiration you're receiving now? It's simply confirmation of the energy you carried all along. The same essence they overlooked is the same essence they're now magnetized to. What changed wasn't you. It was their ability to finally see. You became the mirror they avoided, the voice they ignored, the presence they misunderstood. And now, the very thing they tried to silence is the frequency they're quietly tuning into. Their admiration is late, yes, but it's laced with truth. It's not just applause for who you are today, it's repentance for how they mishandled you yesterday. Some will never say the words, but their eyes, their energy, their quiet support, they all whisper the same thing. You were the one. You didn't need to fight for attention or beg to be seen. You simply stayed aligned with your calling. And the light did what it always does. It revealed what was hidden and drew in those who were finally ready to see. Whether their admiration comes from guilt, growth, or genuine awakening, it doesn't matter. Because your rise was never dependent on their validation. It was divinely timed, divinely guided, and undeniably deserved. Let their quiet praise be the soundtrack to your evolution, a soft echo of the truth you carried before anyone else could name it. Keep rising, keep shining, and never shrink to make others comfortable with the power they once denied but now crave. Your crown was never invisible to heaven. The world's finally catching up. If this message spoke to your soul, if it reminded you of who you are, or revealed something you didn't know you were carrying, don't just watch and scroll. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another word that was meant for you. Like this video if it stirred something real in you. Comment below. Let your voice be heard, your story be felt, and your light be seen. And most importantly, share this with someone who needs the reminder. They were never too much. They were just too early. This is more than content. This is confirmation. Welcome to a space where truth doesn't just speak,